Okay, this is an optional uh, working through applying the templates. So if you created your personal My Landscape, we're going to utilize it. I pushed some buttons on the last of the video that I really want the document template to reflect. So I'm going to open up the drawing template, My Landscape, that was created. And so if you haven't gone through this process, save it for later and understand what is happening with these customized sheet formats and templates. All right, so made a few changes, did a little cleanup, and if I go into the properties, I tried to browse back to the same file when I really just needed to reload it. So that reload file, if I apply the changes, now I have the updates and the other information, and then just to make sure, I think most of that came in. Just to make sure, I'm going to save the document template so that any of those adjustments were all made. And yes, I want to replace it, and then we can close it. And so that should have my center and dim layer. And what we're working towards then is I've used the default template, and if I started off with my landscape, I wouldn't necessarily have to go through this process. So if you made an adjustment, you've worked with your customized template for a while, and you realize that there's something that wasn't associating correctly or was picking up the wrong information, you wanted to adjust it, then we're going to go back through and reload for an existing drawing. So that being the case, I'm going to come up to my system files, make sure that the landscape is picked, and then custom property values from model shown, same as, well, we unchecked that, so hopefully that is working correct. And then select the sheets. If I select all of the sheets, keep my fingers crossed, we hit OK and apply the changes. And it's going through and click where we're. Now my template's updated. So previous, I'm trying to think when they added that apply to all sheets, 2018 or 2019. And then the check that we needed to do was we have the name and it picked up the part name. So it looks like it's still doing that from the first assembly. So if that's the worst thing that happens, I still have to make a correction as same as sheet. All right, so that puts it over to the base slider. So my document template isn't set up perfect just yet, but we're a little bit closer. So since I've gotten the warning for 20 minutes, let's go ahead and make sure that that saves. So I was living dangerously. I didn't save it at all. All right, so we'll go ahead and let it save. And if I need to, then I would go through, yep, I'm going to have to go through each of the properties and uncheck that box so that the name of the part shows up. So I would have to go back into my default document template, add a sheet, make sure that's unchecked, and try to do the save. So still one more thing to do. Properties. Okay, and I'm not going to go through, I will go through all these, but I'm not going to go through all of these on the video. You get the idea. But it did go through and it updated where previous versions would have to go sheet by sheet and do that anyway. So we get that updated, and this should have my dims layer and my center layer. So this would be a good place to utilize the filters and pick for the dimensions. So everything that I grab should just be a dimension. And over here, let's see, I want to go to other, and we can go to dims. And then if I go to the center marks, Was that not picked? Well, since it got the center marks too, I did something when I picked the filter. So another one is I have to go back and watch the video and see what I did or didn't do. All right, so we're going to switch that one over to center. All right, so that looks pretty good, and we'll try again on the next one. So picking for the dims, everything's selected, and I want to try a right click this time, change layer, and we can pick the dimensions, and then F6 will turn off, and I'll just Control select each of the center marks, center lines, change that to center. All right, so pretty much this process going through, well, there's all of 2 dimensions there. So I can also come over to the layers, set that to dims. We didn't do a center mark for the right view. All right, and then one more time, make sure that the filter is on. And we'll switch to dims. And then I'm going to switch off and switch off the dimensions and switch on the center marks. And pick those. All right, and then pretty much the same process through the rest of those. All right, so that gets everything pretty much updated. We'll go through, but you can see that this is getting refined. It's making a nicer looking drawing as we go. Whether we're in ANSI or ISO, we're going to be able to pick up those geometries and kind of put numbers on this that are going to make sense. Let's see, there was one that that showed up. And then we'll go down through these. So the views, the tables. On a dimension alignment, let's go ahead and expand that out now. All right, there was one that was letting the controlling the extension lines that I don't see now, so it might have just been a specific for that case. But pay attention to what's going on those right mouse in context. We'll go through and I'll do the rest. Oh, the drawing and the custom for the current sheet. We'll add those and apply. So those should update automatically. That was what I was missing. Let's go back into sheet 1 and I'll open up the assembly, and I want to very quickly apply materials. So let's see, the feature tree is over a little ways. So one of the quick, and not sure why that is. Well, let's go with this configuration just in case, but I expect that those that if I see all those minuses that I floated or I did something when I set the configuration, so I'm going to catch that. We'll expand out, look at the material. And one of the other things with the tolerances is what material we're using. Do I need, if I'm doing a steel pin to an aluminum disc, I would probably want a bearing in there because any RPM is going to gall up, and it really doesn't matter how much lubrication I put on that joint. It's just not going to hold up. So bushings, bearings, steel, aluminum, we're going to have to make all of those choices. So if I go with plain carbon steel, that's going to take more to machine, but it's going to be heavier. But I'm going to have to account for that in the tolerances. So let's just go through and very quickly I'll apply plain carbon steel to these just so that we have that have that material to work with. And then the pins should all be, since they're all instances of the same pin, I should only have to do one. And same with the support, even though there's two supports. If I expand out the other support, I'm going to see that the carbon steel was applied to it. And then the rod, more than likely I would probably go with a stainless steel on that, but since it's not in the list, let's edit the material just as an example. And steel, 303 or 304, since 303 is not in the list, we'll go with the 304 and apply it. Alright, so we'll get into custom materials, or I'm sure there's a 303 somewhere in there though. So, and then same thing. Maybe we'll do that one as brass. And so notice that the color has changed based on its material and the properties. So from the so those are working okay, and the date. And so on the print, if we pulled up the actual part numbers, this will be the slide 01, and apply, and that becomes the should populate out and fill. So varies and not applicable. We have the scale. Apparently the mass did not get caught up, so I would need to add the mass. Let's do one of the parts. So the base will work. Right click and edit the part. And we're going to go through the same process. So if I'm giving it slide 02 and a finish, I don't see the mass in there, and then this is going to be raw. If we're coating this, it would probably be powder coat or a black oxide. And the date. So now I have something else on my list to go back and add to the custom properties for the mass. So if I need to very quickly add that, configuration specific, because it may change with holes or geometry being added or taken away. Let's see, that's going to be the weight, I think is the default. And so one of the things that does come up is the custom properties. Because I pointed it to a different folder, I think it lost my list, so I will have to double check that. So if this is in grams, that would be about right for metric. And if it's in pounds, then wow, I went way overboard. So let's go ahead back into the to the sheet, and 8.82 pounds for an 11 by 2 by 1 3/4. All right, so those are the types of things that we're going to work towards and keep building into the to the process. So I will find that that folder real quick and get my my properties in the right place. Okay, so rather than pushing all the buttons to remember where this properties where these live, if you do not have, and this is one of the other reasons to kind of combine all these up in a standard location, is under the view, hidden items and file name extensions should be shown so that you can see the program data. And then for whatever reason, SolidWorks hides it under SolidWorks 2021, language, English, and then the GTO, or is the geometric tolerancing symbols, and the properties list. So this is where all of those pop-ups from that list show up at. So I'm going to copy those, and if I did this right, and we're going to have to check, is I'm going to paste these back into the my new system location, And then let's go back into the file properties. Oh, I'm in the drawing. It might show up here, but now I have that list there. And I'm not sure why that's tied to the custom properties other than it is properties. So it's one of those kind of small nuisance items that we want to figure out. So got the weight. So that one was already added. Let's go to see if that one's got, well, we can see if its mass is in there. So I'm adding these manually, but I really need to go back into the custom properties, property tab builder, and weight. And this will take all of those materials. And, well, the majority of that being the base, everything else is about 700 grams. So, all right. So we go through, we're getting more information, we're refining it further as we go, and making notes of little incidental changes that need to happen. So not sure why it's taking so long to update other than possibly the properties. Let's see. So there's my SLD001. Doesn't look like the part number got assigned, so it's kind of one of those check and recheck as you go. And take this as far as you want. Again, this is kind of the optional dealing with the sheet formats and templates and understanding how that process ties everything together.